Good morning, Mr. Patel. How are you doing? How to fail at almost everything? How's that book doing for you? It's better than I expected. Oh, you had your expectations low, but why? I built it up so much. I built the books up so much for you. You shouldn't have had your expectations low, but okay. Isn't the humor so subtle and so brilliant? And also the insight. You're done with 33%. My God, you have a pace, man. Your pace is inspiring. Where have you reached, by the way, on that book? Where are you right now? Just one second. I'll set myself up on LinkedIn. Then I'll message everybody. Yeah, got it. So you were saying 13th chapter to be started. Beautiful, right? Beautiful. Did you like that insight about the solar thing that he said? Like, if I would have just delayed that expense, if I would have just delayed that expense, it would have been much, much healthier for me and everybody. But you can't say that in California. And he's so right. Now, that particular insight has changed the way how I look at expenses. You know, like if delaying expenses is such a beautiful thing, why not do it more? Is what I think. So if I'm looking at an expense, I ask myself if I can delay it. And if the answer is maybe, I just delay it, you know. And money saved is money earned. But that's how you ruin an economy, right? The consumption issue. One second. Yeah, there it is. 59th. I've sent it on WhatsApp. I've sent it on LinkedIn. I'm live on LinkedIn. I'm live on YouTube. Here's some good insights, especially energy. But that would be bad for India for consumption. You're right. The best insight, by the way, of this book, which might have come by now or you haven't read it, I won't ruin it for you, is about goals and systems. Have you read that? Now, that particular insight was first suggested by Scott Adams, sir, but then took over by this James Clear guy, Atomic Habits. And yeah, you're there, right? So, Atomic Habits has got nothing on how to fail at almost everything. Atomic Habits is like a mainstream dumbed down version of this book. Much, much dumber. This one is like that place, but much better. So, I guess everybody can hear me. I think you can hear me on YouTube. I'll just check myself on LinkedIn. Everybody. Yeah, I'm good on LinkedIn. So let's begin. It's 8:09 already. Yeah. You don't have to read Atomic Habits after. Good morning, Mr. Tarun. Yes. And how to fail at almost everything has a sense of humor. You know what the problem with Atomic Habits is? I'll tell you the problem with Atomic Habits and books like Atomic Habits. So they begin well till the time the guy is sharing his journey, right? His story. Because once till the time you're sharing your journey, you're good, right? Because your journey is unique. Your journey is not codified already. Your journey is not mentioned anywhere. So you basically the reader has an insight to something new because nothing is more insightful than a life well lived, right? And if a person is sharing that, you get some real personal insights as far as that place considered. The moment the person stops uh, you know talking about their own journey, the moment the person starts giving generic gyan, then it becomes generic gyan. Then it becomes gyan which you have read everywhere before, which you know already, or which you might just find somewhere else, right? And that's the problem with Atomic Habits. Till the first half varies, talking about his journey. It's a good book because he's talking about his journey. It's very interesting. Then he starts talking the usual concepts of life. Let's say, anti-fragility, and basically just starts borrowing from other people's books and collecting it into one book. And that's not that's not great writing. Mr. Tarun, we are talking about how to fail at everything and still win big. It's by Scott Adams, sir, one of my personal heroes, and a very, very great guy. Mr. Patil, actually, just while we were talking, at Thinker's Frequency, he ended up reading a book called Shoe Dog, which was the first book he read. You might like to congratulate him. He read it in less than a week, essentially. He really enjoyed it. And then he picked up How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. Shoe Dog was the autobiography of Phil Knight, sir. And How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big is the autobiography of Scott Adams, sir. So both great books. So right now he's at How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. And we're gonna move to the show that we deserve. We deserve it, right? The show that we deserve. It's gonna begin now. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, well, everybody. Not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things could get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, we got to follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition? You know the tradition. Don't be shy. Just say it. The tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together on this beautiful morning and it'll bring us good luck. It does. It does bring us good luck every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a copper mug or glass, a tank, a chalice or stein, a canteen jug or flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. Today I'm having coffee, black. And here we go. Oh my God. This is some real good coffee. This is some real good coffee. So this is Humblebean coffee from our very own viewer of Thinker's Frequency, Mr. Sumanna from Bangalore. It's a cooperative of farmers in Karnataka, and they farm. They literally real farmers who grow this coffee, Arabica coffee, and then they are now a brand as well. So a viewer of Thinker's Frequency. Sharing coffee. Cheers. With that out of the way, you know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you're not alone. It says that we're in this together. And that's such a beautiful thing to say. And let's begin. Factories start humming with festive frenzies. Brands plan to ramp up premium production by 10 to 20% in September quarter. Well, a lot depends on this particular September quarter, right? The festive season. A lot depends on this festive season. You know why it depends on this festive season, right? For this country, for this economy, for the companies, for everybody involved, for the markets, for jobs, for everything. This festive season is very important. You know why? Can you guess why? Would you tell me why? Why this festive season is so important? Huh? Okay. Domestic consumption. Uh, Domestic consumption is the biggest pain in the butt right now of the country. Domestic consumption determines the sentiment, the purchasing power of people, the number of people which can be hired. Domestic consumption also determines the private capex which will follow. Private capex determines how jobs will follow. Jobs determine how private consumption follows. So it's an upward spiral. And for a long time, this country has been dealing with subdued consumption, slowed consumption, less spending, which has been a real issue for the government. Now, the government has treated this or tried dealing with this in a lot of ways, right? The government reduced the interest rates, it brought inflation low, it, it simplified the tax regime, the income tax, no income tax below 12 lakhs, it did that. Uh, so many things, right? PLI for company support and so on and so forth. But now the real test begins. The earnings weren't so great this particular quarter. The earnings were subdued of the companies. However, they can still pick up. And now with the festive season, so the timing seems right. Maybe it was planning, maybe it's luck, uh, maybe it's great strategy, maybe it's a bit of both. You never know, but the timing was right. So the interest rate reduction from RBI is gonna kick in. Like, it's already kicked in, it's already there, but it takes some time to translate, right? So it takes some time to genuinely come down. Let's say it comes down in the first month and a half or a 90-day period, right? Ever since it came down and took 10 days, so it's gonna kick in the first month and a few days in the real economy. So that's when the rubber will hit the road, when the interest rate decrease actually starts leading to increased lending, right? And when that increased lending picks up, you might just see something happening. So maybe government timed it, or maybe the government was lucky because the inflation numbers came out well, the job numbers came out well, a lot of numbers came out well. So maybe the government was just lucky that, okay, interest rates got reduced right before the festive season was supposed to kick in, right? It's just gonna take. When does the festive season begin? It begins in October, right? October. So we have August, September. These 2 months we have before it basically kicks in full-fledged way. October, November, December. These 3 months are the festive season months, right? Bit of January, but these 3 months. So let's see if the government strategy actually leads to big numbers. Right now, the parliament session is up. So a lot of data is being thrown at us from the parliament. And some of that data is actually pretty solid. So one of that data, which I should discuss before we begin everything else, is the external debt to GDP ratio. External debt to GDP ratio of India. What do you think it is? What do you think is the external debt in terms of percentage to GDP for India? Okay, that's hard to know if you've not read it, so I'll give it to you. 19%. So, country's debt, external debt, is 19% as a percentage of its GDP. Okay? Guess China's debt. Now, that's not written here, but I studied. So, what's China's, if India's external debt to GDP is as a percentage is 19%, what must be China's debt to GDP percentage wise? Just give it a shot. I'll take a sip of this beautiful Humblebean coffee. Just give me a shout. China is 40. No, Mr. Tarun. Less than 10, Mr. Patil. You both are incorrect slightly, but Mr. Patil, you are closer. So China's debt, external debt, is at 12%. Mr. Tarun, I get why you said 40%, because China has a very, very big problem, debt problem. But it seems like you are new to Thinker's Frequency, because we've discussed that China's debt is mostly domestic. So China's debt overhang is not really a big problem for the economy because it's basically domestic debt. 12% is China's external debt to GDP. Now you have Chinese number. You have India's 19%, China's 12%. What must be US debt to GDP? as a percentage. Can you guess that? I'll take another sip. This beautiful coffee. Just guess. 19% India, 20% let's say, 12% China. Where should US be as far as debt? Maybe that's 50%. Mr. Patil, Mr. Tarun says 110%. Mr. Tiwari says 100%. Mr. Patil says 50%. Mr. Tarun and Mr. Tiwari are close. Mr. Perspective says 35%. It's actually 93%. So US debt to GDP and external debt, not internal debt, is 93%. That's why Mr. Musk is so hell bent on everything, right? Now you understand where he's coming from. He says US is gonna go bankrupt. Everything might just be great, everything might just be good, but US will go bankrupt if that problem isn't sorted. India, by the way, is in a very solid ground right now. Yeah, you must appreciate what India is doing, right? 19% debt to GDP, growing exports, controlled imports, inflation in control. The only problem being, we know the problems: private consumption and domestic debt. Private consumption and private capex. So these are the only two problems, and maybe the interest rate reduction and everything that's going on puts that in perspective, right? So moving on, Whirlpool India is going to get bought by some private equity players. Some action has happening as far as the cooling sector is considered, but the deal is not that hot. That's a wordplay, unintentional. And a cooling company like Whirlpool, but the deal is not that hot because Havells and Reliance were looking at buying Whirlpool. If you remember, we talked about this. We talked how Havells and Reliance were looking at buying Whirlpool, but now they've backed out. So they've come they've come out of the deal. Whirlpool wanted to exit India because it couldn't really make a dent, and Whirlpool's it had a lot of royalty overhang, so it wanted to essentially pair that particular investment, and Havells have gone out. Yeah, bad groups, this controlling stake. Moving on. This is pretty interesting. Now, why do you think Havells and Reliance have backed out from buying Whirlpool? Is it a sectoral problem, or is it just a Whirlpool problem? Now, this is a question which I always like to ask, right? When you're talking about such big companies, when you're talking about such huge companies, their performance is an indicator of the economy. Quite fair and square, right? That's just fair to say that their performance is an indicator of the economy. Now, if Whirlpool is getting bought, right, and premium players in this business, which are Havells, Reliance, and so on, they are not taking it up. Only private equity players are taking it up, who are kind of not really operators, right? What does it say about the sector? Is it a sector problem, or is it just a Whirlpool problem? It's a good question to ask, right? If you ask me, I'd say it's a Whirlpool problem. That even though this summer has been bad for the cooling companies, and India with its regular heat waves doesn't seem to be a consumption problem. Exactly, Mr. Perspective, you're right. Right now, we had a bad summer for these companies. Good summer for people, but bad summer for, let's say, cooling companies, AC companies, fridge companies. But overall, the market should be huge, right? But if you think about it deeply, the government is coming with a lot of regulations as far as the cooling business considered. They're trying to limit the energy usage, or let's say not limit, make it more efficient. They're forcing efficiency onto the cooling sector. Maybe that is an overhang which these companies don't want to deal with. Slightly complicated, but very good thought. In If you consider parking money. So if you think about parking money, or if you think about investing money, you might like to analyze this sector with this lens, right? Moving on. Business revamp on J agenda. So J is the promoter group, the family, the Wadia family. Wadia family is a 288 year old family, business family in India. like Tata's, they're very old. Vadias hold Britannia, Bombay Dyeing, they used to run Go Air, and so on and so forth. So there's a huge article about Vadia's coming, Jay Vadia coming back into the company. He had basically taken a break during COVID, so he's coming back after 4 years, and he's talking about how he's gonna revamp Bombay Dyeing as a real estate company instead of a textile company. Now that's again something. Why would you revamp Bombay Dyeing from a textile company to a real estate company, right? Uh, doesn't textile have a lot of scope, especially in India, because of whatever is happening in the tariff space, right? Uh, Bangladesh exports are going down. India might just get favorable treatment as far as the textile industry is considered. But when you look at textile, and it's a labor intensive, heavy ops business, and then you look at something like real estate. Is real estate greener than textile in India? Maybe, maybe. So another thing he talked about was the sad demise of Go Air. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know. Uh, Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know how we talked about Go Air. Mr. Kulkarni asks. I'll answer that question later. Uh, Go Air died because of Pratt's and Whitney. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency remember that, right? So Go Air had a very interesting story. It's one of the most interesting corporate legal tussles, or let's say corporate flame out stories. So Go Air is an airline, okay? They tie up with Pratt and Whitney. They are the engine suppliers. They get Airbus planes. They have Pratt and Whitney's engines, and then those engines stop working, right? Because those engines aren't tested to Indian conditions. Those engines stop working. They have problems. What happens when the aircraft engine has a problem? The aircraft has to be parked. Okay. What happens when the aircraft gets parked? The airline company gets screwed, because that's the time when it could be flying and making money, right? So it doesn't fly, it gets grounded, and then the airline starts losing money and it's sweating. And running an airline is a race against time, right? Because you're like, what do I do with this plane till it gets repaired? And what happens in business generally? What happens in business, right? When your vendor, or let's say when your partner screws up something, you ask politely in the beginning, right? So you say, hey, Pratt and Whitney guys, repair these engines. Do something about these engines. Do something about these engines. This happens for a few days, for a few weeks, for a few months. Now, in a few months, if let's say even a single plane is grounded, it's like a loss of hundreds of crores, right? So then come the legal issues. Like you start suing the person. Now, when it goes legal thing takes its own time, its own sweet time. Nothing happens quickly in the legal play, right? Then comes the but the plane is still grounded. So all that legal rigmarole is going on, but the plane is still grounded. The planes are still grounded. Go Air is still losing money. Suddenly, all those losses pile up, the debt piles up, and the company is forced to go bankrupt. Now, it might win that case someday in the future, right? But it's already bankrupt. The airline has been grounded. It's gone off the market essentially, and the company is dead. It has to be declared dead. Now it owed money to banks, right? Now those banks take over the company and try to sell it piecemeal. So even if that arbitration or that legal case someday makes money, someday brings money, someday forces Pratt and Whitney to pay Go Air for all the losses, uh, the family or the business won't ever see that money. It's going to be the banks. And that's what happened with Go Air, right? The engine guy screwed Go Air, and it couldn't fly. So he was talking about that being a sore chapter, which makes sense, right? Did you know about that story? Of course, viewers of Thinkers Frequency know about that story. We've discussed it, but maybe it's been a long time and you forgot. Now, Mr. Kulkarni asks, Ishan Kulkarni on LinkedIn, what must be Japan external debt to GDP. 111%. Exceeding 111%. Uh, you know, it's so unfortunate, says Mr. Tiwari. Absolutely. And the sad part is, even a family like Wadia, who are like kings of India, these, if you look at Indian industry, all of these are pre-independence people. Tatas, Birlas, JKs, Vadias, all of these Dalmias, these are in Modis, all of these people are pre-independence guys. They're kings, like. So even those guys couldn't really do anything about it. They had to get grounded. To like so much of loss. Everybody lost jobs and so on just because of those holes called Pratts and Whitneys. Moving on. Good story. Quick commerce players throw light on dark stores because of they were unhygienic, they were very bad, they were causing a lot of problems cleanliness wise. They were supplying food products which were bad. Now they're opening up, they're gonna do some sort of sanity check. This has been going on for a long time, so we also thinkers frequency know that they found out some real shit happening at Zepto's dark stores. You know, moving on, that's gonna happen. That's an ongoing process. By the way, a big news: Tilak Nagar Industries, which was caught by Andhra Pradesh government, or let's say the regulatory body for colluding with the Andhra Pradesh alcohol sales organization, the government entity, and giving kickbacks worth like 300 crores plus. So that overhang aside, Tilak Nagar is gonna buy Imperial Blue today. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember this had been an ongoing development where we were talking who's gonna buy Imperial Blue. So a lot of people, Imperial Blue was looking at a valuation of let's say $1 billion or something, but it's gonna sell for finally $600 million, and Tilak Nagar Industries is indeed gonna buy it. So it's gonna take a lot of big leverage position to buy this company. Imperial Blue, this brings it to this brings an end to the Imperial Blue courtship with Pernod Ricard. So Imperial Blue was earlier with some other company, but then Pernod Ricard bought it, and in 2002, Ogilvy and Mather guys designed that campaign called "Men Will Be Men," that one, and then the company became a household brand, but now it's gonna be with Tilak Nagar Industries. So third largest whiskey brand in the country. Sales have lagged in the recent years. Many consumer brands move to upgrade premium brands. So now this is a premium step for Tilak Nagar, because right now it sends mansion or something. So it's a premium step. It goes into the semi-premium, or let's say premium economy zone. But Pernod Ricard wants to go totally premium. You know why? Because alcohol sales are declining overall, not just in India but over the world. And the only play to make money is go premium. So if you're premium, because 66% of alcohol in India is still not premiumized, so that's the scope. So since alcohol sales are declining overall across the globe and even in India, every company with some financial might wants to upgrade. So an upgrade for Pernod Ricard is to sell Imperial Blue and move upwards, but an upgrade for Tilak Nagar is to buy Imperial Blue and move upward. You know, so very interesting dynamic there. Today it's gonna the transaction is gonna happen. $600 million. None of that money is gonna come to me and you as well. That's the only sad part, right? Moving on. Home buyers plotting deals, land prices climb. No surprise there. Land. Mr. Perspective said, Mr. Tarun said, maybe McDonald model with Bombay dyeing. No, 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 no. No, they want to be like a reality business, like a DLF kind of a play. Not McDonald's, if that's what you meant, like franchise or something. Already Bombay dyeing already runs on franchise as a thing, but no, that's not the play. Moving on, tourism trickles in back to Kashmir. Travelers return even if many tourist sites remain shut. Well, I won't travel to Kashmir, that's for sure. It's too much of a risk, right? And you'd rather go to Northeast, the beautiful place. Uh, but that particular place seems scary to me. But they're saying that even though it's just 20-30% of what it used to be before Pahalgam attack, it's returning. So none of those returns are coming from me. Moving on, there's a bullshit report, which is very important. Bullshit report is by World Bank. It says India needs $2.4 trillion in urban infrastructure investment by 2050. So what do you hear when sitting in 2025? You get a projection for 2050. What do you think about that projection? Now we've talked about this. We've talked about this a lot. But what do you think about that projection? I have just one word for it, or it could be two words, and those words are bullshit. Because nobody knows what happens in 2020, 2050, right? So you gotta ignore World Bank there. Moving on, IMF says India must ease import curbs and FDI norms for external balance. Now, how do you judge this? India must ease import curbs or FDI norms for external balance. Now, do you think this is an unbiased statement? Just to look at it, in this hyper localized world, which is moving very very far from, let's say, uh, overtly optimistic globalization, driven by the extraordinary strength which China has derived from the exploitation of it, do you think this is good advice? That it should ease import curbs? Do you think it's good advice? And do you think, by the way, it is a fair and unbiased advice for India coming from International Monetary Fund? Right? I don't think so. But the perspective is that India needs to reduce import restrictions, especially on intermediate goods, to boost private investment and so on. It says that Indian external sector was stronger than expected, but still it could liberalize more. I don't think. I'd like to check where this particular recommendation is coming from, because at this moment, India, for what it's worth, would actually need to save and relook at the whole import game because of the whole tariff situation that's going on across the world, right? And whatever protections India needs to give, it needs to give. Now, people say that, oh, you're being a protectionist. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So, so, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? China was protectionist. It didn't let any internet company run in China, and then it developed its own industry, and in consumer internet industry and technology industry, which is basically screwing America all over the place. China had intellectual property theft happening all over the place, and now it's a manufacturing power. China protected itself as far as the whole electric vehicle manufacturing place considered. Now it's rationing rare earth minerals. It was protectionism which helped China. US was not protectionist. See what happened to it. Manufacturing died, everything went like literally to shit. Europe was not protectionist. Europe is now a technology colony of China and America. So a limited, balanced protectionism is always a great idea. What do you think about it? Moving on. Center says, the government says that we've given up 1 lakh crore, 99,000 crore corporate tax on account of tax incentives. Now, this is a lot of parliament talk, politicians talk, but data is data, right? So they say that our PLI schemes have driven 1.76 lakh crore worth investments. So people think that what good is a PLI scheme? Let's say a government spends 25,000 crores or 50,000 crores, right? For semiconductor or so on and so forth. How does that help? How it helps is that with that footing of the bill, a lot of private investment starts happening and cascading effects start piling up. So the government says that our PLI play has led to investments of 1.6 lakh crores, 1.76 lakh crore. 1.76 lakh crore is roughly $20 billion, $20 billion, and that they have led to jobs like 6 lakh jobs and so on and so forth. So the data says 1.76 lakh crore investments, exports rose to 2 lakh crore from 22,000 crores in 2021 2021. So 2021, 22,000 crores, and now 2 lakh crores. And a lot of jobs. Net importer, we used to be a net importer. The scheme has contributed in a net exporter of bulk trucks. So they say that our PLI scheme is up, and also they say that renewable sector has created like 6 lakhs jobs because of our solar initiatives and so on and so forth. Now these are numbers, can't doubt them, can't debate them, but at the same time they've said we are looking at 35,000 crore tax demands under black money law. So now this is a double-edged sword, right? Because a lot of it is retrospective, a lot of it is, since it's retrospective, it's regressive, but money laundering and black money act have to work out. So 35,000 crores there, a lot of action happening as far as the government play is considered. GST is getting a renewal, so let's see what happens there. A lot of talk, but a lot of politicians talk. But sometimes it gives a lot of interesting insights, right? Like the debt to GDP play. Moving on, I don't know why these people keep talking about spam. How many of you are actually bothered about spam calls and spam, let's say spam messages? Spam calls are still pretty annoying, I get that. But do you feel bothered about spam messages? You know, on SMS. Does anybody think that spam SMSs are a problem now in this day and age? Especially when nobody essentially uses SMS. I just delete and block them. Even with calls, it's a problem, says Mr. Tiwari. Mr. Tarun says, I just delete and block them. I don't face any problems with SMS. And they're just over-regulating it. Most of the real bothersome messages come on WhatsApp, where they say hi. And I'm like, who is this? And they're like, do you want a part-time job? That's a problem, right? So they're just over-regulating the telecom sector, and they're not regulating the OTT sector, that's the WhatsApp kind people, and that's just happening. We've discussed a lot about this, but we won't go there. By the way, I'll give you a very, very big news on this. So we were talking about how TV is over-regulated, and let's say OTT is under-regulated, right? And we were talking about how it would make sense to just either regulate OTT at the same level as TV, or just deregulate TV, right? Let it go, right? Let nudity happen on TV, let explicit language happen on TV, just let it happen, because that's happening on Netflix, okay, and on OTT. So just yesterday, I saw a movie called, now there's no way for me to say it because this is the movie, but it's slightly exploitative. So if some 10-year-old is watching, please cover your ears. The movie is called Gandu, okay? That's a Netflix movie. It's not a Netflix movie. It's a movie which came out in 2012. It's a Bengali movie. It's an art film, actually. But it's an R-rated art film. It's like, it has full frontal nudity. It has, like, you see a woman filleting a guy. Like, literally filleting a guy in that movie. That's like oral sex in that movie. Right in that movie, okay? It's not a porn film. It's a proper art movie where that has happened, okay? Now that came on Netflix. Now I had seen that movie back in like 2014 or 15 as a college kid, right? So I was like, do they show that in Netflix? I need to see. So I saw that, and they had those scenes. Now a lot of you are just gonna shut this off and go to Netflix and watch that. And I hope you don't. But that is how deregulated OTT is. Imagine that happening on TV, right? Now, a perspective which I share always is what is my fault for starting a TV channel? I wanted to run a business, right? I wanted to run a business, and I set up a TV channel, and then I get regulated from all angles. I can't show anything, while these people are showing full frontal nudity and you know uh, like filleting of people, right? So does this make sense to you? Now Mr. Tarun says they should regulate rather than deregulate. Now I have the opposite view. They should deregulate. They should free everything. They should free the cinemas, you know, from all sorts of certifications, because that's how the industry is gonna grow, you know. And if you can't do that, then you should regulate everybody equally, so that there's level playing field, so that a person who's unfortunate enough to be running a TV channel doesn't feel so sad anymore, because TV is dying, right? 150 million D2H subscribers in 2015, down to 100 million in 2025, down to 78 million in 2030. It's gonna be. TV is dying. You gotta save it, man. Come on, deregulate TV, you know, or regulate OTT just as you regulate TV, which will just ruin everything, right? But it's a perspective. So moving on. That same thing is happening with TRAI. So TRAI has declined Department of Telecom request to regulate telemarketers. That's a good thing. TRAI has said that, you know, spam rules are targeting telcos, but marketers remain unregulated and unaccountable. So they say, you know, we can't regulate telemarketers as of now, but sooner or later it's gonna happen. It just sucks, right? Dixon's profit surges 131%. Dixon profit surges 131%. Now, what does it tell you about government's plan to stop the PLI for smartphone manufacturing? Was it a good move in retrospect, or let's say was it a good move with a lot of foresight, because they saw that the smartphone industry doesn't need those PLIs anymore, right? Makes sense. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency obviously know that we had the smartphone industry's PLIs going out. Government said no PLIs anymore for smartphone industry, and that sort of declared a big win for that scheme which started in 2017, the smartphone manufacturing SOP, right? India exports a lot of smartphones now. It's a profitable thing. It became profitable in 2021, 2022. So for 5 years, it lost a lot of money, this PLI scheme of smartphone, but the graph looked like this, right? The graph looked like this. But the new guys will not be able to enter. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. The new guys will not be able to enter. But if an industry and the new players require a PLI to enter, that industry is not green by intrinsically. So you got to fix that industry, because PLI is not a fix for an industry, right? PLI is just a thing which leads to a start. But if the industry needs a PLI for a new player to enter, you got to look at it. Now that it's matured, right? It's almost 8 years now. Moving on, there is an update on the Chanda Kochar case. She was the head of ICICI Bank CEO. Now, Chanda Kochar had some issues because her husband was a friend of Videocon Group CEO or the founder, whatever, promoter, right? And the Chanda Kochar case is that Chanda Kochar basically gave loans to Videocon at an urgent basis against kickbacks on those loans. So she basically, while running ICICI, she did a lot of illegal activities, personally benefiting from these loans, which were given basis kickbacks and personal relationships instead of all these things. So then these loans became NPAs because Videocon went down. But the problem is that the case was that their assets will have to be seized because they gave loans illegally. Now, PMLA, that's Prevention of Money Laundering Act, has appellate has upheld ED's seizure of some properties. So it's clear the transactions are very, very clear that Miss Kocher was essentially indeed wrong as far as this play is considered. She was not just in those meetings, but she also signed those urgent loan letters. Now, for a long time, people said that it wasn't Miss Kocher but Mr. Kocher, and she just got caught in the crossfire, right? She just helped out her husband or whatever, and without doing anything, without overreaching. For a long time, that narrative was being peddled, but that narrative is no longer holding any ground because the case is becoming more and more open and shut as time goes by. Moving on, similar case with Reliance Metro, MMRDA and Reliance Metro, the Mumbai Metro guys. Reliance had uh, filed a case because they had some expenses problem, and MMRDA said no. So they filed an arbitration. They won an arbitration, but Apex Court has stayed the deposit order. So whatever happens in these complicated cases, and they happen a lot, we viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know, we've discussed like so many interesting legal cases, right? So many super interesting legal cases. And just like we discussed this Vadia case, right? The Go Air case. Who makes money? Who makes money when all of these conflicts happen? Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know the answer. Write it out quick. Let the comments rolling. Who makes money? Yeah? Any answers? Lawyers! Mr. Padel. Lawyers make money. Lawyers, Mr. Tarun. You're right. You're right. You're so right. They're truly anti-fragile, right? Paytm has, by the way, posted its first ever quarterly profit from operating activities of 123 crores. 123 crores of operating profit. So essentially, they'll be looking at what? 500 crore net profit? 500 crore net profit. That's what? How much is 500 crore rupees? 100 million would be 800 crores. So 500 crore would be some $60 million. $60 million. They're gonna have a PAT of $60 million. But they debuted at $20 billion valuation, right? So right now the company's market cap is $7 billion, I guess, $8 billion. So whoever invested in Paytm during the IPO really lost a lot of money. But now let's hope the company sort of regains it down. It's gonna take a couple of years, I think, for the company to get back to its. Couple of years is very optimistic, by the way. It could take 3-4 years or even 5 years to reach its $20 billion valuation. But now it's good news. So kudos to Mr. Vijay Shekhar Sharma, right? Finally. Moving on. Eternal's market cap has really shot up. Eternals, by the way, Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Tarun, Mr. Patil, Mr. Perspective, a lot of people, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember, we talked about how Zomato's market cap went up. It went up by a lot, right? The stock went up by 7%. And not because of some great results, the profit declined 90%. Food delivery growth essentially fizzled out. Food delivery is at a static play. But the management commentary said that food deliveries, let's say plateau has bottomed out. So food delivery will also pick up. And quick commerce grew 40%. So the revenue grew, profit went down. But still the stock went up 7% on that day, 8%. And then the next day, that is yesterday, the stock went up further 10%. 10%. So if you remember, I was telling you that this is not puntergiri. This management guidance is actually doing it because I said that of all the people, I don't expect Zomato to indulge in any gray ethical kind of a play. So a real optimism as far as Zomato is considered for the market. So its market cap has crossed like 3 lakh crore rupees. 3 lakh crore. So $30 billion. Stock hit 3 lakh crore. That is like greater than a lot of nifty stars. So 3 lakh crore market cap. And what was the profit number of Eternal? Can anybody tell me? I don't remember. Eternal PAT. Eternal PAT was 39 crore. My god, 40 crore in PAT. That's nothing, right? 40 crore. No. That was Q4 2025. So Eternal Q1 PAT tumbles to 25 crore. So at a PAT of 25 crore, they have a market cap of 3 lakh crore. 3 lakh crore is essentially $36 billion. $36 billion. My god. What's the revenue multiple? What's the revenue of Zomato right now? Eternal revenue. Maybe profits are not the right way to judge the company because it's so high growth right now. 7,000 crores. So 7,000 crores is the Q1 revenue multiplied by 4. Let's say 30,000 crores. So if they do a revenue of 30,000 crores, they have a revenue multiple of 10, which is not bad. Which is not bad, right? It's a high growth company, sunrise sector, a lot of basically no competition. Swiggy is a competition, but it's lagging behind. The valuation is 3 lakh crore, Mr. Kale, I said. They are heavily investing in Blinkit. They have Hyperpure. They are vertically integrated. They have an events business. Events are going out big. So that's a whole vertical. So 10 revenue multiple isn't that bad actually. Isn't that bad? And so if you judge it by PE, price to earnings, it's like extraordinary expensive, right? 25 crores, 100 crore in a year, 100 crore and 3 lakh crore. That's I can't even do the math. Like how much is 3 lakh crore divided by 100? How much is 3 lakh divided by 100? 3 lakh 30,000, 3,000, a PE of 3,000. But if you talk about the revenue multiple 10, it's justified, I think. So moving on. But I won't personally, because Sanjeev Bichhandani sir is a part of Zomato, such a big part. He's one of the largest shareholders, and I have like so much of respect for Sanjeev Bichhandani sir that you've got to appreciate at least how these people. So the stock debuted at 776 rupees. So Zomato went public at a $7 billion valuation. Right now it's at a $32 billion valuation. Do you think Zomato couldn't have aimed for a $10 billion valuation like Lenskart, even in that condition? Do you think it wasn't possible for them? Like Paytm went at a $20 billion valuation. Do you think Zomato couldn't have tried that? And if it would have tried that, it wouldn't have led to something good for Zomato? It's possible that they could have, right? But they left some money on the table for people. Now that's ethics, man. That's principles, right? That's good business, right? And that's basically because of Sanjeev Bichhandani sir. So you've got to give them credit. Whoever invested in Zomato stock when it began at 76, right now sits at like 300 rupees. So they essentially quadrupled your money in just these 4 years. So, and they could have screwed it. They could have like had a $10 billion IPO, right? But they didn't do that. Moving on. Private banks yields on advances dip on faster rate transmission. Now viewers, thinkers, frequency know about this. The net interest margin play. Rate transmission is happening quickly. Loans are becoming cheaper. Which is leading to net interest margin squeeze for banks because they can't reduce the deposit rate anymore because people are not depositing money in FDs at all. So if they bring it down further, it's gonna just ruin the particular there'll be no deposits. So CD ratio will fall down, right? So net interest margins are squeezed, and that's a bit of a problem which we discussed. So we talked about this a lot. and that's exactly what's happening. So we are essentially we are very good at predicting things. It's becoming very clear now. We can relax and say that we are whatever we are saying, whatever we are analyzing, it's not bad analysis, because 60 days uh, is time to test ourselves, right? How do you analyze things? How do you actually predict things? Is your understanding of things generally correct? So we are generally correct about things, and banking is one of those areas. Speaking of being generally correct, Mr. Trump has been generally correct, right? A lot of people thought that tariffs are going to screw the economy and it's going to be very bad for business. All economists said that he's wrong. He said all of these economists are dumb. And right now, he has said Powell is a numbskull. So he's called the chief of Fed, quote, numbskull. And he said, I wouldn't fire him because he's going to be out in 8 months anyway. So he said that it would have been great if he reduced the rates, because if rates would have gone down, people would have started buying homes, and that would have led to a lot of consumption activity. But this numbskull, and he also called him a few days ago, and I quote, a moron, right? And then an idiot, again a quote. I'm not saying it. It's not me. It's Trump. It's Mr. Trump who's saying Powell a numbskull, a moron, an idiot. But point is that he's out, and you know. So just he mentioned that can you fire the chief of Fed, right? And suddenly the stock market went down, because then he said, no, of course I can't fire Fed, and I know that I can't fire the Fed chief, and I won't fire the Fed chief, and nobody needs to explain them to me. So people said, there was a report, a Wall Street Journal, I guess, I don't know. They said that Trump's advisors told him, explained it to him, why he can't fire the Fed chief. So you know what Trump said to that? Trump said that nobody needs to explain to me that I shouldn't fire the Fed chief, that it's gonna be bad for the markets. By the way, nobody explains things to me. I explain things to people. No, that's such an interesting thing to say, right? Nobody explains things to me. I explain things to people. But that's Trump. That's Mr. Trump. Moving on. There is a question by Mr. Tarun, which I'm gonna answer. 1 second. A lot of action happening in the biosimilar space. Biosimilars, we've talked about this. The way that you create a living cell, you work on the living cell instead of the totally synthetic play, right? So the biosimilar market is gonna go up, and what they're essentially talking about is not using animals for testing. So yeah, I'm not missing out anything. Biologics and biosimilars is an emerging segment. $1 billion is going to be very close right now. It's at 876 million. Yeah. So biosimilars are medicines based on living cells and are very similar but not identical to originally invented biological drugs or biologics. So biosimilars, we discussed this, how biosimilars are different than generic, right? So they are living cells, very close but not similar. Generic is a total copy of that particular ingredient in a synthetic form. So that's what I was confirming, the wording of it. We have not missed out anything. So Mr. Tarun asked, what if exemption of US debt they owe to others and reduce tariff for countries? No, that doesn't make any sense. Mr. Perspective said, can totally imagine him saying that with his small hand movements. Yes. Nobody explains things to me. Nobody explains things to me. I explain things to people. Right? That's always fun. Always fun to watch it. Moving on. GMR Airports is raising 5,700 crore to refinance debt. A lot of debt refinancing happening. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember how corporate debt is a bit of a problem for the Indian banks, because Indian corporates are in such a good position liquidity wise that they're not using banks to borrow money. They're issuing bonds and they're going in the capital markets instead. So that's a bit of a problem. That's why the government is suggesting Indian banks to start looking at startups and so on and so forth. So that's interesting. Moving on, a lot of IPOs happening, terrific amount of IPOs happening. Tata Capital, so many IPOs happening. It's scary, man. It's scary. I think they are like overestimating the retail investors' appetite. That's just me. Like scary amount of IPOs and huge IPOs, right? Huge IPOs. Moving on. Europe is helping IT survive, is the headline. Europe revival helps IT survive quarter shocks. So, Indian IT, the $280 billion giant of an industry that is Indian IT, is dependent on US for like 50% of its customer base, right? Then comes Europe for 30 to 40%, 30 to 35, that's 85%. Then comes rest of the world like Japan and every place else, right? South America and so on and so forth. So, Europe's billings have sort of made it better for Indian IT. Otherwise, it would have been really bad. The US billing has really come down. It's been a problem. Europe billing is up. Now, Europe has been a laggard as far as tech adoption is considered. So maybe it's slow to move. And that's why that's a good news for IT because it gives time. So that's the particular news bit. But overall, as tech adoption takes place in Europe at a faster pace, more trouble for IT. Speaking of trouble, quick commerce companies are chasing brands to raise ad spends in high margin revenue push. So I've written a huge article on this quick commerce business, that quick commerce doesn't make money as a quick commerce business. As a retailer, it doesn't make money, right? Because operations, everything, it's a bad business. However, it can make money if the advertising spend goes up, if people start using it to advertise their brands. But now what it's leading to is that these companies are forcing brands, small and big, to have a very very good advertising spend. Otherwise, their stuff won't sell. So right now it's an arm twisting kind of a way, right? We control what moves, right? If we control what moves, if we determine what sells, we determine how much you should pay for it. So we think that you should pay us ad money to sell. And if you pay us ad money, we're going to move your merchandise. And if you don't, you won't sell, right? Now they have a lot of leverage in a category of these products, right? Some quick commerce friendly products, they have a lot of leverage there, right? So how far can they push this? Because I talked to a very big D2C brand founder, and he was not happy with how D2C was shaping up for brands. He said they delay their payments, they don't pay on time, they keep the payment stuck for months and months, 6 months over and above the due date, and then the ad expenses are rising, and it's basically just a shitty exercise to sell on quick commerce. So how far will these companies flex, let's say, twist those arms, right? Because there's a level to which you can squeeze that player also, right? He has limited margins. So he can pay if he sees light at the end of that tunnel. But if he stops seeing that, if it becomes slightly less lucrative for him, how far do you think this will go? Is a very, very good question. I think not very far. Moving on. Cases happening. Geopolitically, Zelensky is renewing the offer to meet Putin directly. Putin says not interested right now. That's the crux of the story. Because we've talked a lot about this. Zelensky really overplayed his hand as far as Russia is considered. And it would have been good if Democrats retained power in 2024. But that didn't happen. And now Trump wants to get out of that war, but it's too late. Everybody's stuck. Europe is stuck. Ukraine is stuck. Russia has been badly treated by the Western world. So it's like you try to screw me as much as possible. Now I won't stop. So Russia at the moment has like 20% of Ukraine. 1 second. 20% of Ukraine. Russia has currently control of 20% of Ukraine, and nobody knows when it's going to stop. Moving on, uh, UK government green lights a $38 billion nuclear plant. So they say that nuclear plant is going to be up. It's going to be starting in mid 30s, but we're going to invest 38 billion pounds in this particular nuclear energy. Now you would remember that nuclear energy was very hot, but then some stupid moronic leaders came into Europe, like Angela Merkel and other people, who just killed nuclear energy. Germany just shut down its nuclear plants, and then it got dependent on Russian oil, and its emissions really grew up. So they just killed nuclear for no reasons. But now UK is getting back to the nuclear bid, and a lot of this is happening as we predicted, right? So we said, like if you remember, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember that energy consumption is gonna go up with AI, with the data centers, with Bitcoin, with whatever. Energy consumption is gonna go high. But with that, the energy supply is also gonna go high with nuclear and renewables and solar. China is already like going crazy on solar, right? They have more solar than US makes in a year. They made in a month. So anyway, energy supply is gonna go high. Energy demand is gonna go high. But then computers will get more efficient energy wise, right? So energy demand is gonna dip. And when that happens, there's gonna be an oversupply of energy, which means there's going to be a serious deflationary pressure on energy, which will make energy very cheap in times to come. How does that sound? And that's going to happen, is what I predict, is what my math tells me. So let's see. AstraZeneca to invest $50 billion in US as pharma tariffs loom. Now, people said, viewers of Thinkers Frequency, some had asked questions like, do tariffs even work? Why tariff? Why tariff? No tariff, just reduce tariffs and be happy. Everybody's gonna be happy, and so on and so forth, right? And I said, no, tariffs do work. Tariffs work. So AstraZeneca has decided to invest $50 billion, is committing $50 billion in US investments because of tariffs. Because with tariffs, imports of pharma products to US will become expensive, right? And that'll be a problem, because Trump said that you're gonna have a tariff of 200%, right? If you don't do that. So 200% tariffs, that's like extraordinary, right? So that will lead to less demand of that product in the country, or replacement of that product with something else in America. So what do companies do in that case? They just start building in-house, in the country itself. When that happens, jobs return to the country, pharma intelligence returns to the country, a lot of production starts happening, a lot of consumption start happening. So a little bit of protectionism goes a long way. Speaking of stuff, CBDC, the central bank digital currency, US has gone out of it. Bank of England is also considering shelving it. So CBDC has not picked up. I never got the point of CBDC, to be honest. RBI said it's like a wallet. But why do you need a wallet? You already have bank accounts doing all the thing. They said it's going to reduce the transaction expense. Sure, but CBDC was born out of as an answer. It was started as an answer to Bitcoin and these things. But that's very different, right? That's very different. So it never made sense to me. I wrote a lot about it in 2019 when it first came out. But now finally, people are going away from CBDC. Which brings us to the end of the 59th episode of Thinkers Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. But before I go, I'd like to tell you a study where they could have saved some money. So they just did a study that essentially, University of Sydney in Australia, they were looking at disrupted sleep and its relation with mood disorder. So they were studying if disrupted body clock and disrupted sleep has something to do with mood disorders. Now how they could have saved some money on that study, right? How could they have saved some money on that study? Mr. Tarun, just ask Nishant Mittal. I mean, like, if you have like $1 million parked for that study, right? Just save half of it. Save half of it. Ask me, and I'll say, do broken sleep and broken body clocks and sleep disruptions have anything to do with mood disorders? Yes, yes. Thank you for the money, right? And that would have been over. They could have saved like $500,000, but no, nobody comes to me with that kind of money. By the way, speaking of some BS, which we talked about yesterday, that was a brand value thing. Like we talked about Neeraj Chopra's brand value and how it was $30 million or something. And I said brand value is just a bullshit, absolute bullshit metric. It has no real life implications whatsoever. Today they've published Karthik Aaryan's brand value at $44.5 million. Like, how does it make any sense? Like 8 to 10 crore per brand endorsement, 50 crore for a film. So where did this 44 million dollar brand value come into the play? It's just a bunch of bullshit, but that's what happens. The world runs on a lot of bullshit, right? Some people actually make a lot of money on this. So I'll tell you who publishes this. Kroll's Celebrity Brand Valuation Report. So there's a company called Kroll, and they publish this celebrity brand value report, and then they publish this report and people buy these reports, and then it leads to good outcomes for the company which is publishing these reports. They don't mean anything. And with that, we'll go. I hope you had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. I always do. It's a great start to the day. Great mental workout. Great insights, analysis get discussed. Mr. Patil, Mr. Tarun, Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Perspective, Mr. Kulkarni, Mr. Kale, everybody, thank you so much. Have a beautiful day, personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. Bye-bye.